You're listening to Life, the Universe, and Everything Else. Today on the show, or should I say tonight on the show, a night at the Creation Museum.
Life, the Universe, and Everything Else explores the intersection of science and society. Original music is produced by Ian James, and this episode was edited by Marissa McCool. Find her on Patreon at patreon.com/QAF.
My name is Jen Newman, and with me today I have Lauren Bailey.
Hi.
Ashlyn Noble.
Hello.
Dave Bonwick.
Hello.
And Laura Creek Newman.
Hi there.
So we've just watched a masterpiece. We watched Kent Hovind is no longer in charge.
Eric.
We watched Eric Hovind's Night at the Creation Museum, which was a breezy 35 minutes, including credits, opening monologue, and closing monologue.
I would say sermon more than monologue.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Did that also include the trailer for the next one?
Oh, yeah, it did.
Yeah. So maybe 25 minutes of actual content.
It felt so much longer.
Well, okay, let's cut him some slack. It was filmed over 24 hours on an iPhone. And it looks it.
I mean, honestly, good job with the phone.
Yeah,
Yes.
Phones have come a long way. So this film, obviously, is I guess, parody? Inspired by homage to Night at the Museum. The classic Ben Stiller, Robin Williams. I can't call it a classic.
No.
What am I doing?
Classic.
It's well known, yeah.
Okay, alright.
It's well known for its cultural sensitivity and historical representation.
Uh-huh.
We watched it this afternoon. First time for me.
Ooh, yeah. Teddy Roosevelt.
Bully.
No thanks. Anywho, this film is loosely patterned after Night at the Museum. Our protagonist, it opens with our protagonist, Eric Hovind, playing Derek.
Charlie, this is Ponytail Derek.
The new night guard at the Creation Museum. As he pulls up in his banana yellow sports car, I guess
Very fancy cover.
It was a Camaro.
All right, that's a sports car.
Yeah, I know.
Or just being more specific.
I am
Okay.
being more specific.
Right, fine. I was thinking, wow, being a security guard at a third-rate religious museum must pay very well. And then I remembered, oh no, this is Kent Hovind's son. Tax evasion pays very well. I think
Allegedly.
No, he was convicted. He's decades in prison.
Kid was convicted. Eric
Okay,
hasn't been.
right, okay, fair. Sure.
They got all the money back,
Jen,
remember?
We can't afford to get sued.
Anyway, yeah, I think the most recent charge was actually domestic assault.
Yeah.
For Kent Hovind.
Oof.
Anyway,
All right.
He gets into the museum.
he gets into the museum.
And the docent, the guy in charge, is like, yo, do not fall asleep whatever you do. So we know, obviously, that's immediately going to happen.
Right. The first thing he does is, I guess, like, make some jokes on the PA system, and then spins around in his chair a bit, wanders about, forgets what Lucy's name is, I think calls her Dexter or something like
Goes
that.
through too many D names and then settles on Dexter, but then shortens it later.
I assume the script was also written in that 24-hour period.
That's also the name of the monkey from Night at the Museum.
Yeah.
We
Oh,
did skip
okay. I gotcha.
the extensive training routine he had to go through to become a security guard here.
Oh, right. Ashlyn said that it was almost as thorough as the training they received when they worked at
Local amusement park.
the local amusement park. Thank you.
The litigious local amusement park.
There are technically several amusement parks in our vicinity.
But you all know which one we mean.
Would you like to explain the thorough training that you got?
Yeah, so I worked at a local amusement park when I was maybe 15. And the training for how to operate the rides, which were like legit rides, children go in them and they go around on tracks and
There's like one of those swinging boats.
Yeah,
that like goes really high.
They tinker
That wasn't
around.
there at the time, but in
Oh,
any
okay. Well,
But the training was gather around everyone, here are the buttons. This one is start. Okay? It will stop on its own. If someone is crying, though, and you really need to stop it and they won't stop, here's a stop button. End of training. Start, stop, make sure they're not crying. That's all they care about.
My childhood has a whole different flavor now.
Right? Because I went there all the time as a kid.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, wow, I'm so surprised nobody's died.
Oh, man. It would have been a lot more fun if we'd spent the evening watching Action Park.
No.
That's so good.
This was not as unenjoyable as I expected.
Sure.
Anyway, there was extensive training, and then he did some typical running around the museum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Although
they made a lot of, hey, out of you have to follow every single item on this list,
Right.
which is just a reference to Night at the Museum. But then, of course, that list never came up again.
He's carrying it with him, but they imply it, but they don't make enough of a deal about
it's
it.
never useful. Like, he never consults it for the answer to any of his questions.
The answers are in Genesis, Ashlyn.
Oh, that would have been so much better if he looked down at the list and it just said the answers are in Genesis, and then he's like,
I've done something with that.
I have been a script doctor.
Lauren, I
could've
think
called
you
me.
need to call them up at Creation today.
Would they pay me in sports cars?
Okay, so Derek makes some funny jokes about how nobody, he I guess didn't realize that this was a creation museum, despite the fact that it is called literally the Creation Museum. And he realizes as he's there overnight that the people who run this museum don't believe in science, haven't they ever heard of evolution, etc. And then
He is such a good straw man for...
Oh, yeah. And then he falls asleep, and then...
He took a nap.
He took a nap.
Sorry, yes. Very different.
Very important difference.
And then he wakes up. Obviously, he's not awake. Spoiler alert. And he finds that the museum is... I don't know, there's a weird noise or something that he goes to investigate. There's not really anything...
Is this when the Jumanji drums happened?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a really long time.
Yeah, and very little happened.
He runs into a room with a bunch of bugs and display cases and goes, ah!
That was later. Because first he's... Or no.
No, that
You're right. Sorry.
Yeah, he does this twice with different...
I was thinking of the part where he just kept gawking at the Adam and Eve scenes in the darkened jungle.
Despite having a child, he's never seen a nude person.
Goodness.
Well, we know they make it clear that he's not that involved in his child's life anymore. So of course he's I guess being separated from his wife. This is his backstory. It's complicated, right? And so he then runs back into the guy who is training him, who this guy walks him through the real story of creation, which is, of course, is a Young Earth Creationist museum. He tries to poke some holes in the fossil record.
Whenever anybody tries to tell me that they believe it took place in 7 days, I reach for a fossil and go, fossil.
Explains how Lucy is, of course, Australopithecus afarensis, which means South African ape. We're just going to go, like, dictionary definition here.
And they talked about how the bones in her feet were very more ape-like than human.
Well, they said specifically, like, she's often depicted as having human-like feet because they didn't actually have feet when they found the bones. There aren't any foot bones, so we don't know, but they're probably more likely ape. And then they show different fur patterns, but of course fur is not fossilized, so they say, they just make her look human when they show her using fur patterns, but actually you could also show fur patterns that make her look like a monkey. And of course there's not a lot of differentiation made between monkeys and apes, which annoys pedants like me.
He was so mad.
And then... What else did they
Then
tell
he goes into the Holocaust Hall.
Right. Oh, yeah, the Holocaust Hall. Why is there evil if there's a good God? And we learn that...
They see on the wall, it says, read Romans 8:20-22, which I have put here in my notes.
Please.
Okay. For the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that, 21, creation itself would be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning as the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. Why was this on the wall?
I would love to hear their...
Was it by the Adam and Eve stuff?
No, this was in the Hall of Human Suffering.
Yes, this was right above, this was what was printed above the woman who was shooting herself up in the arm.
Because Satan.
Could it be Satan?
Is why there's evil. So Satan is responsible for Derek's mother dying of cancer. But they make it clear that since the wages of sin are death and we are all sinners... Oh no, this was in the epilogue, right?
Yeah.
The sermon afterward, excuse me, wages of sin. Getting back to the actual plot, they poke another few holes in evolutionary theory. They try, right.
So
They go into the Hall of, Starlight, where they say, or Derek, as our science straw man, says, well, if all of these stars are millions of light years away, then how could their light reach us if the universe is only 6,000 years old? Which is one of the classic questions for a young Earth creationist. And a new guy who appears there,
explanation.
The third member of the cast who is suddenly there, says...
With a teddy bear.
That doctor does have his ID on. Dr.
Faulkner. Professor Faulkner.
And it is clearly labeled in the at the end credits as himself.
Yes. He says, well, that's a good question. And then fails to answer it. He says, there are lots of possible explanations. He doesn't bring up my favorite one. My favorite explanation that I've heard from creationists is, of course, that sure, these stars are millions of light years away, but the light from those stars was created in transit.
My notes from this section say, the Big Bang Theory was a miracle, or has a miracle of itself. Turn on a fill light, my dudes.
The lighting is so bad.
The problem is creation itself. If you believe that God created the universe, you will see that this makes sense. And then, this is Gish Gallop. Those are my notes for this section.
It was wild. And it's not that he failed to answer the questions. It's that
But he did.
He decided to walk down a totally different hallway in those questions and say, don't worry about those questions. You don't need them because if you believe in creationism, nothing else matters.
Yeah, he basically says, there are a bunch of possible explanations. I don't know, but what you should really be asking is, since the Big Bang also requires a miracle, at least the creation story has both a miracle and a miracle maker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they need a miracle and no miracle maker. Therefore, our explanation makes more sense.
Right, because how could you have a miracle without a miracle maker? So,
Gotcha.
They go on at great length in several cases about how scientists don't really understand how X works.
Right.
We're not talking about the site formerly known as Twitter. We're talking about fill in the blank, excuse me.
Or MDMA, if you're old like me.
Yeah, right. Scientists don't know how Y works.
And we're not talking about format. Internet thing, Yahoo.
The internet was a mistake.
Okay. Scientists don't know how whatever fill in the blanks works, and yet they believe it anyway. But that's not actually true. Scientists will provide hypothetical explanations for phenomena that they observe. They'll observe a phenomenon, and then they'll say, we don't know what the answer is. Here are some possibilities, or this is the possibility space we're exploring. But they will never say, you must take one of these hypotheticals and believe in it dogmatically. They'll say, this is our leading explanation for these reasons.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And then this Starlight sequence ends with him being slapped by a teddy bear repeatedly, which I think is another reference to Night at the Museum. I think I fell asleep when we watched that movie with the kids. And then...
Then it turned into the best movie ever.
Right. Where he is now back at the front desk.
No. He's in the backstage.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I missed that part.
And a dinosaur suit comes around the corner. And I wrote, there's now a dino suit. This is the best movie ever.
So their special effects budget was not large. And so they had a guy in what looked like, what was that spitting dinosaur from Jurassic Park? Looked like one of those. One of these. Yeah.
Compsognathus.
The two of you, the way that your brains work, I just can't every time.
Yeah, it had the fan.
Yeah.
It was the one with, like the Jesus Christ lizard.
Okay.
Sure.
So, anyway, this guy in a dino suit comes stomping past, and he's like, ah! And runs away. And
then there was a 3-beat. And then there was another 6-beat. And then there was the jump scare.
Yeah, the jump scare was not timed correctly. I think they may have padded the jump scare for time.
Because that's exactly where you want to put in your fill.
He sees a bunch of the other dinosaurs that are not animated in the museum.
This is the repeat of the bug sequence, where earlier he was screaming at bugs that were not moving in cases, and now he's screaming at stationary dinosaur fossils that
named Ebenezer.
Not doing anything threatening at all.
No, there was a lot of him getting freaked out by stuff that was very mundane. Yeah.
And then Tim Jaffe shows back up.
Yeah.
The scariest guy. That's the tall guy.
And they return to the front desk, where they see his lifeless sleeping body, and he realizes that it's all been a dream. And he says, well, I guess I wake up now. And Tim Jaffe says, not so fast. I'm not letting you wake up until you accept Jesus, basically.
Well, it was, you have to make a choice.
There was the whole David and Goliath sequence.
Right.
How because the name David and the name Goliath existed, that means the story existed.
Right, yeah. Sorry, I skimmed over some of the biblical archaeology that they focused on.
The biblical archaeology section I did think was fun, because it was just so over-the-top ridiculous. Like, I feel like your average 10-year-old could put some holes in the arguments there.
But there's a potsherd, Ashlyn, a potsherd.
What I was hoping to do was just kind of get to the end of the story, and then we can go back and, pick at the various things that we thought were silly.
We can't do that.
We can't do that. Okay, so let's talk biblical archaeology.
Yeah, just as we were saying, they yelled about how, well, the skeptics will tell you that because these people didn't exist and we just made them up, but actually, we have evidence that people named David and also people named Goliath lived 150 years after the story.
Yeah.
Nailed it!
He actually went into some smarmy detail about how skeptics will claim that all of these stories were just written down or made up hundreds of years after the fact. But, 2 minutes pass, we have evidence from only 150 years after these stories that there was some record of some king named David.
The House of David.
The House of David.
Yeah, not even
probably
a guy
king
named David who attacked a bigger guy. Just the House of David existed.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, the fact that some of these stories might have historical antecedents in no way invalidates the criticism that we have no reason to believe these things happened the way...
Sure. It's just ridiculous for them to say that our evidence is bad, and then they present equally bad evidence.
Right?
Well, not equally bad. Come on, so much worse.
We've got a guy named David sitting right here, and sometimes he fights guys who are bigger than him.
Bible tale come to life, really.
He's never used a slingshot, though, in an SCA battle.
No.
So, we now discover, as we have the sleeping corpse of Derek and then the living, sleeping Derek in front of us. Napping, excuse me. We now discover that the Lurch? What's the guy's name?
Tim Diesel analog.
Yes, Tim Jaffe.
The tall guy, Tim Jaffe. Yeah. Tim Jaffe.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, they make a joke about him supposed to be being Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah, in the beginning they have a whole bit about...
I just think it's important to point out how...
Anyway, we discover that he has some knowledge or insight that if Derek would just accept Christ and creation into his life and start believing in biblical literalism and maybe grab a few books from the gift shop to give to his son, it would save his marriage and save him from being a deadbeat dad.
And a movie.
Oh yeah, he also gets a DVD of the 3D Genesis experience or something.
3D DVD, that's him.
Oof.
The gift shop was the best appointed part of the entire museum.
And then he decides to wake up and accept Kent Hovind as his Lord and Savior. Excuse me, this is the Creation Museum, Ken Ham. And then he discovers, I guess, that his next job will be guarding Noah's Ark.
The Ark Encounter.
Yeah. The Ark Encounter has a lot of lumber going on, I gotta say. It's very pretty in there, based on the trailer we saw.
We did not sit through the second movie for you, listeners.
I kind of wanted to.
Yeah.
I also want to see where this goes.
Okay, well, fodder for a future episode, I guess. So what was everybody's favorite argument?
Favorite.
My favorite was that because fossils are found around the world,
Yes.
and you need water to make fossils, it is proof positive that there was a global flood.
But it's so painful to watch. As
Oh.
fossils are made by things dying in water. In water. Around the world. In water.
Do you get
It just goes on for so long.
And Derek is like, I don't get it. What do you mean? He's like, water everywhere? I don't get it.
But it makes sense that he doesn't get it because the argument is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yes, water exists around the world. So do humans. We
Yeah.
needed to live.
It's, and even if the argument wasn't terrible, which it absolutely is, the way that Tim Jaffe or Jim Jaffe, whatever his name is, that guy, the way that he just keeps saying the same words but doesn't actually, like, prod him to the understanding of the flood is just...
That's the next
it was
episode.
so painful.
It's like the teacher who really wants someone to get there, but won't give any more information.
Yeah.
And the class is just stalled.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
It's pretty awful.
My favorite was one of the signs on the wall.
Oh, yeah. This is the racism one, right?
I took a picture of the racism sign.
Okay, so Lauren, instruct us.
It's got a picture of the Adam and Eve saying, "Are human races," in quotation marks, "equal?" And below it has a naturalistic evolutionist worldview. Evolutionist worldview. There's a word. And also a biblical creationist worldview. The naturalist evolution worldview starts with, while most evolutionists reject racism, their philosophy is inherently racist. And the biblical creationist worldview starts with, all human beings are made in God's image and are descendants of Adam, so there's no basis for racism from a biblical perspective.
Somebody's never heard of the Mark of Cain.
Yeah. Like, I know you people have read this Bible. You quote
Have
it
they?
a lot. The people who
Can't handle
made
it.
it up, for sure, like, the people who made the museum for sure have.
Mhm.
There's racism in there.
Oh yeah.
What I do appreciate... Yeah, like, obviously, I think Lauren, they said during the show, yeah, eugenics is bad, we get it.
We understand.
Yeah, we all agree. There are many cases in which science or the...
Misapplication of science.
I would even say like the idea of science, or the science is used to cloak a bunch of horrible things. Like,
Yeah.
it's used as an excuse. As a drunk uses a lamppost, etc. You all know that phrase, come
Yes.
on. Yes. But that doesn't mean that evolution is inherently racist. I think what they're getting at is probably the idea of like an evolutionary ladder, where like certain things are more evolved than others, and so they would think that evolution is inherently racist because some like races would be more evolved than other races. But that is not remotely how evolution works. It's
No.
a bushy tree. Everything is equally evolved.
They are stuck at a phrenologist level of
Yeah.
evolution.
Right, yeah.
Exactly.
That's something we actually yelled at the original Night at the Museum movie today, is at one point a character is telling the Ben Stiller character, don't give in to the monkey's antics, remember who's more evolved. Or, you're both equally evolved!
He took a different path.
Yeah, like any of us try swinging in trees by our non-existent tails. Come on,
Oh
like...
my god, we went to the zoo today and the gibbons were brachiating and it was amazing.
Oh, I love the
The
gibbons.
gibbons were so cute,
Yeah,
and the
they're-
little baby, and the mom was wandering around with the baby in her lap, like holding it with her legs. It was delightful.
Yeah,
Brachiating.
brachiating while holding infant-sized thing. Amazingly, interesting technique. Holding one leg up as a shelf.
That's wild.
It's just just amazing the techniques to do it. That's all.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
One of the most heartwarming things about this film, I think, was the fact that it provides evidence that answers in Genesis and creation science ministries have finally, like, buried the hatchet. Because I remember, like, Ken Ham used to, like, go after Kent Hovind, Eric Hovind's dad, for using really, really shitty, long debunked arguments when he could be using Ken Ham's slightly more recently debunked arguments instead. But obviously, Ken Ham invited his rival's son into his own home. And isn't that lovely to see?
Well, he was filming this after hours.
Oh yeah, maybe he just broke in.
Don't you even knock? I don't have to knock. This is my house.
That would be funny if Ken Ham saw this and was like, wait a second. Who authorized this?
That's my money. That's my science man.
What is your problem? My problem? You want to know what my problem is? I'll tell you what my problem is.
Anybody else have a favorite argument that they did?
I think mine was honestly the David and Goliath one. It was so ridiculous. Yeah, so I've already hashed that one out.
Yeah, we have evidence that these names existed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where most of the names in the English language come from.
That's some SCA level evidence, my dudes.
We can document ham sandwich, so...
Ham sandwich as a name is perfectly documentable.
I want all the ham.
Yeah. To 16th century England.
All right. Somebody was feeling something that day when they chose that. I really liked the planetarium bit, the light years explanation, non-explanation. It wasn't an argument, and it was so funny how it just wasn't even close to an argument or explanation. And that was entirely what I expected.
Yeah, it's just, again, one of my things that I like as well is the argument that light years are not a measure of time. They're just a measure of distance.
The first thing you need to understand is light years aren't a measure of time, they're a measure of distance. Yeah, because the speed of light is constant in a vacuum, so you know both the time, because you know the time, therefore you know the distance. And their argument was like, he threw out a bunch of, maybe in the past light traveled at a different speed, and that's why we can see the light from these stars that are so far away. But, of course, the real question that you should be asking is, do you want to believe in something that requires 2 miracles or just 1 miracle? Basically. It's the mathematics of miracles. They didn't invoke Occam's razor, but it was implied. But, of course, like that, just to take some time to unpack that for listeners, what they're saying is the biblical story of creation requires a miracle, explicitly. But the biblical story of creation includes a miracle maker, God. Therefore, it is internally consistent. And their argument is that the story of
the Big
Bang requires a miracle. And in this case, what they're saying is the inflationary period in the first fractions of a second of the existence of the current form of the universe. That requires a miracle. But scientists don't have a miracle maker. Therefore, it's not internally consistent. But that's not true. 2 obvious problems occur to me. Deal with the second one first. So the...
You didn't name them yet! How do we know it's the second one?
Because the second one comes first.
Yeah, obviously.
Newman!
So, what I'm trying to say is that the problem with this required miracle of this inflationary period, the inflationary period isn't something that scientists are demanding people believe in. They're saying, from what we can tell, it appears that the universe looked approximately like this, and then it looked approximately like this. And we don't know what happened between those 2 steps. There are a couple of models that we have that would be consistent with that, but we don't know exactly how it works. That doesn't mean we require a miracle. That just means we don't have a full picture of what happened, and we're trying to figure it out. That's very different from saying a miracle occurred in step 2. Now, the problem with the Genesis story is, of course, yes, you require a miracle and you have a miracle maker, but you have no explanation for how the miracle maker got there. And that's something that's always been a sticking point for me. You can say, like, God is eternal, and therefore he doesn't require an explanation for his existence. But you could say the same thing about the universe. We don't know that the Big Bang is the
Genesis.
The genesis of the universe is the beginning of space-time as we understand it, but that doesn't mean that there aren't causal antecedents necessarily, I think. I don't know. But it's possible that the universe has existed in some form for as long as things can exist, and that it doesn't require an explanation. Ultimately, I don't know, but I wouldn't assert my particular pet explanation.
And that's the difference between you and the creation people.
Yeah, I guess so.
And the not knowing is the fun part.
It gives you an opportunity to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, yes.
But
yes.
I like knowing stuff.
Yeah,
Knowing stuff
having
is
spent
nice.
a lot of time learning in the last several years, I am looking forward to knowing stuff.
I got bad news for you, Newman.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that they're aware of how they are. Well, I don't know if they're aware of how much they're projecting their worldview. They made a really big deal during the LUEE part about how evolutionists are projecting their worldview onto LUEE and not addressing their own thing. But I'm not sure how much they know they're doing it or how much they don't know that they're doing that. I'm not convinced either way. And that is frustrating.
Projection is the number one but of a narcissist. Projection is number one tool of a narcissist.
And so if you have been raised or have spent the vast majority of your life in a system that requires there being a definite, infallible answer to everything, that is the lens through which you see the world and everything about it, right? And that is not addressed.
We don't even know if they've examined that.
Right.
They can't. Because if they did that and properly examined it, they wouldn't be Young Earth Creationists.
No, some people can examine their beliefs and go, I am more comfortable this way.
I don't think Young Earth Creationists can.
I think it depends on a lot of things. I think humans are incredibly good at living internally inconsistent lives in many, many ways, and holding beliefs and knowledges that are entirely conflicting for very long periods of time because it is too difficult or painful or whatever to choose one, if you will.
I hate to quote Heinlein.
Oh, God.
But I will anyway.
You don't have to. You do have a choice in this matter, Jem.
Man is not a rational animal, he is a rationalizing animal.
I have that on a bookmark.
It's a good line.
I had to come out to my mom again after she came to a Rainbow Harmony concert and then asked me, why would you be in this choir if you're not LG, B, or T? And I said, Mom, the B stands for bisexual. She somehow rationalized that away as, it's okay, she's straight, she's just in this choir.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. People can do anything if they want to believe.
Did she? Okay. I won't ask follow-up questions.
Nope. Your mom is just the Fox Mulder of...
I had the poster, in my mind.
Yeah.
I could see it.
I know, I could read it in your eyes. Did y'all want to talk about your long-ago trip to the ill-fated Winnipeg Creation Museum?
It was much less cool than this one. But
It was like a single room in a church basement, basically.
I remember enjoying all of the different hominid skulls that they explained badly.
Yeah.
A similar exhibit in the movie.
This one's pointy, this one's flat-faced.
They had casts of the Paluxy footprints, I remember that, which purported to show a dinosaur and a human footprint superimposed upon each other, which were provided as evidence that...
You turn the corner, T-Rex! Eating a pineapple!
Man and beast walked together.
Yabba dabba doo.
I assume Jesus was there too, but was carrying the dinosaur. Why there are only two sets of footprints? And I remember, the thing that I remember most was getting into an extremely detailed argument. Oh boy.
With the oncologist?
There was an oncologist there. I forgot he was an oncologist.
That was messed up.
There was an oncologist there. This is long before I had any inkling that I would go into medicine, who was arguing with me, and he was a young Earth creationist, and we were arguing about vitamin C synthesis and the fact that it is like extremely, like it's clear because humans and our ape ancestors are unable to synthesize vitamin C, but many other
Most other
mammals are able to do it. Mm-hmm. And you can actually see, if you look at the evolutionary tree, if you look at the various clades involved, and I won't get into a lot of details here, but listeners I'm sure there's an excellent Wikipedia article on it by now. You can actually see where the mutation occurred in our evolutionary line that sort of broke our body's ability to synthesize vitamin C. And we actually, if I recall correctly, we still have a broken version of that gene in our genome. Mm-hmm. It's just non-functional, so we can't synthesize vitamin C. But at the time that occurred, we had such wide access to fruit in our ancestors' diet.
It was not required.
Well, plants, like
no
all kinds of exactly.
Yeah.
There was no downside to not being able to do it anymore. So we just kept on with
how
it.
Evolution works.
Unfortunately, we then invented the British Navy, and things went downhill from there.
They sure did.
For a lot of people.
Yeah, things didn't go downhill quickly enough for
the British.
The sun never sets, except your wounds open back up.
Yeah, good times. Anyway.
I think about that oncologist way too much.
Oh, yeah?
Just the fact that young Earth oncologists exist
in
Winnipeg. Yes, that seems... Ugh.
Like, this was more than a decade ago now,
yeah.
I think. Yeah, because I think we talked about that on an early episode of the podcast, and this podcast has been going for more than 10 years.
We're almost at 200 episodes.
I wonder, we slowed down.
We do have other lives and employment.
I wonder if I've run into him again.
Yeah.
And just passed like ships in the night. Hope not.
Doesn't matter. Don't get lost in that thought. Anyway.
I think we've beat the Creation Museum into the dust. Any final thoughts on it? As I've taken over hosting, apparently.
That's fine.
Honestly, I enjoyed the opportunity to see the inside of it without having to pay a dime.
Exactly.
And I really liked that.
Yeah, it was actually not terrible as a interesting way to see what the other side is saying.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to go see the ARC one for the same reason.
Yeah.
I just want to see the exhibits without having to give them money.
Yeah. Like, if I could go without giving them any money, I would probably go see what it's all about and see that. And it looks interesting in air quotes interesting. But I appreciated that glimpse to the other side, if you will.
Yeah. Mm. If you were to go, you would have to go with a anthropology mindset of this is how they're interpreting their world.
Right.
It was, in fact, 13 years ago to the week that we visited the Creation Museum.
Wow.
November 13th, 2010.
Goodness. 2010.
Yeah.
All right, bring it back, Newman.
So if listeners want to check out this film, it is available for free on YouTube. We will link to it in the show notes, I'm sure. Feel free to check it out. Give it a thumbs up, like and subscribe.
And let us know how the sequel goes.
Oh no, we're going to watch that. I really want to see inside this Ark encounter. I just don't want to give them any money.
So with that, shall we segue on to something nice?
Several people motioning to the next person.
Got it.
My Spice took me to the zoo today, and we were able to do that because back in the spring we got memberships, and since then we have gotten to just randomly go to the zoo and the Leaf a few times, and it has been super worth it, and I love having a membership to the zoo and getting to go visit the animals because we have a random afternoon that we're not doing anything.
Yeah,
it was great.
This was our probably last one this year that we're going to have not booked, so it was nice to It's still a bit warm.
Yeah, not booked and warm enough to go walking outside.
Yeah. Well, that sounds lovely.
Beautiful day for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the zoo is actually really nice in the colder months. Like when it's not frigid outside yet, but it's just, it's not busy.
Because they keep the paths clear.
They
you
do.
can walk around.
Yeah, the paths are clear, and it's generally, and they're well kept generally, but it's not busy. And then a lot of our colder weather animals are way more comfortable. So like, I love seeing the polar bears and the muskox. Aw, bears. They're so cute. I love seeing them like enjoying a climate that they are built for. and that's nice.
The bears and the foxes and the snowy owls are just having a good time.
Yeah.
Ashlyn, what did you get to see at the zoo that you were excited to see?
The fox? The bear? Oh, we went and visited Stellar's sea eagle. They made scary noises. We thought they were the monkeys, but it was actually the bird going rah, 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 rah. Like it was quite a noise. And they look like they could, like if they didn't have a top over their cage, they would absolutely come and eat children.
Oh yeah.
Like they're enormous.
They're very, like, I love the look of them. They're quite beautiful birds.
I actually wanted to give an update on last month's segment. Right after we recorded it, I learned that the association that oversees the naming of birds is renaming all birds named after people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there was, like, one guy that they were like, oh, we should rename the birds that are named after this guy because he was a horrible racist. And then they're like, well, where do we draw the line with birds named after horrible racists? So they're just renaming all of them.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the plant people are looking at that and going, uh-oh.
Yep. That's cool. So it may not be Stellar's for that much longer.
Yeah, it's going to be named after the location or some trait of the bird instead.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah.
One of the things that they told us early on in our medical education is you're going to be asked a lot about Murphy's sign or the Dix-Hallpike maneuver, and we're not going to teach you a lot of those names because they're hard to remember and non-descriptive. So we will tell you the new name of the maneuver, and your preceptors will make fun of you for not knowing the old man name for it, but this is probably going to be better in the long run.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad.
But of course I know Murphy's sign and the Dix... you learn it anyway in clerkship.
Yeah.
As long as you can link the two together in your mind. It's like knowing both the generic and the brand name of medications.
Yeah, it's another thing that I get made fun of for. What do you mean diphenhydramine?
Something nice.
My something nice is that I finally got around to playing Myst to completion.
Oh, wow.
Congrats.
That's been a long time coming.
I know. That game was one that I played in the, like, probably mid to late 90s. It came out in, like, 93, 95? Something like that? I don't remember.
Something like that,
96. Yeah. It was impressive for its time, and it was actually one of the games that got me interested in programming. My friend Greg and I spent a bunch of time, like, making sort of the beginnings of a Myst-alike and various other noodling around with programming. And like in high school, and I eventually went into software development as a result. I ran into Greg's father, who is a vascular surgeon, relatively recently, and he was surprised to see me in a different career path. It was a fun, full circle moment. Anyway.
It's just different programming.
Yeah, but I never actually, like, I enjoyed Myst. It was super cool, but I never actually got that far in it because it required, like, time and patience and also a computer that would run it, and at various points I didn't really have access to that. But I always wanted to get around to it, and I really enjoyed it. It's fun little puzzles and figuring out weird machines, and there are lots of versions that are available. There's like a remastered, like fully walkable 3D version that some people have denigrated that's available on Steam right now, but whatever version you play, it's fun. I've probably bought it 3 or 4 times, so it was nice to actually get around to beating it.
It just requires, some note-taking.
It does, actually, yeah. The one sequence that I remember, like, hearing chilling things about was what do they call it? Like, it's not a train, but it's like a minecart, like, track sequence. And I'm just like, I'm just gonna pull out a piece of paper. And I'm like, oh, there are like 8 directions in this. I know which way I'm facing. It's fine. I just mapped it out and no problem. Yeah, it just takes a little bit of note-taking. But yeah, it's fun. I also finally then got around to beating Return to the Obra Dinn, which I started playing a long time ago. It was also lovely.
I haven't heard of that one.
It is by the fellow who made Papers, Please, which doesn't help you if you haven't heard of Papers, Please. But the premise for this game, it's a 1-bit visual game, so it's just black and white, but it's a 3D walk around 3D space, and you're an insurance adjuster. Basically
Wait, it gets better. Don't write it off yet.
Basically, it is set in late 19th century England, and a ship that was long missing has come into port, and it's totally empty. And the company that owns the ship is making a claim for this derelict, and you are sent there to figure out what happened and to adjudicate that claim. And you also happen to have a magic pocket watch where if you find a dead body, it will show you a frozen vignette, like diorama, that you can walk around in of the moment of that person's death.
Wow.
But it's just in this 1-bit black and white, stark black and white, but 3D walkable world. And then you hear a few voices around the time, and then you just see this flashbulb image of this person dying. And you walk around the space and you try to figure out, your goal is to figure out of the I think 60 people on the boat, who every single person is and how they died.
That's intense.
Who killed them or what happened to them or whatever. Just based on this flashbulb scene and a few scattered bits of dialogue or sounds that you hear at that time. It is really cool, really fun, and it goes places.
Mm-hmm.
No Myst, though. And I would say it's probably a slightly better game than Myst. Myst has been on my to-do list for a long time.
You didn't want to miss it.
Oh.
Sorry, I was trying to put that in the
I nearly missed it.
You nearly missed it, yeah.
Yeah, and Return of the Obra Dinn is available on all platforms. It's on Switch, if you want to check it out.
Good to know.
I was trying to make a Riven joke too, Laura, but that's the sequel to Myst.
I've started it again. I started Riven. I've got I think the first 4. It was the whole collection at the time on CD when they did I think 10-year anniversary release or something. Or
anyway, this is not the Gem Show.
I'm sorry.
It's getting late and we have more people to do stuff. I'm sorry, man.
Who's up?
My something nice was spending some time with Jem earlier on Friday. We got to go out for the day and have a nice evening together, and that was nice because he's been away. So
lovely.
Yeah.
My something nice. We've been playing some more of the latest collection of the Jackbox games, which is quite fun. One of them includes a time date sort of game where they give you a thing and you have to say what year this happened in. And
fun.
And the closest year, the year it is minus where you are is your points.
Yeah, it's golf rules, so low.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Oh, fun.
So you can get a score of 0 if you get every answer right. And there's a few mini games through it that reduce your games by percentage to get you closer to that number. And I enjoy trying with our group to get as close as possible to second place. Because nobody can get anywhere near Lauren's score.
Of course.
So our goal is second.
It's good to be realistic, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I had a score of 2.5 once.
Oh my god.
It was incredible. And it's usually under 10.
Yeah, the last minigame takes 45% off your score.
If you get everything very right.
If you are most right in the last question.
When I was in Churchill, one of the things that the whole town basically comes out to is they have a pub quiz. And we did okay. I was playing on the pharmacist team, but every night I was like, damn, I wish Lauren was here.
Yeah, we would have crushed it.
I'd like to go to Churchill.
We're looking forward to going back to trivia in the new year, perhaps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That would be fun. Lauren, did you do your something nice?
No, mine is final. Well, not final.
I will never have something nice again.
Mine is the last one of our night. Yesterday, I listened to and finished the new Sarah Hollowell book, What Stalks Among Us. She writes, this is her second book. She also wrote A Dark and Starless Forest, and it's mostly YA horror fantasy, and this one was really good. It's even more complex than her first book, and I look forward to reading more of her stuff in the future.
Lovely.
Nice.
I think Dark and Starless Forest was also something nice a couple of years ago when it came out. So.
Lovely.
Well, thanks for joining me tonight, everybody.
That was a fun one.
Yeah.
It was fun indeed.
Stay warm out there, everybody.
Our movie reviews are always a little unhinged when we record them. It's great.
It's a movie. What's the point?
The movie was a little unhinged.
Yeah. Stay warm, stay happy.
We don't usually watch movies that we recommend people go watch after we have watched them.
No, we watch them so they don't have to.
Yeah. This one, well, maybe.
It's worth a half an hour.
If it was any longer,
that's true.
That would be a problem.
And skip the sermon at the end. We didn't even talk about that, but it was very weird and judgy.
Oh yeah, it was the wages of sin is death, and we all deserve death. But
and
Jesus was
one
nice.
Guy I knew who died would want you to be saved.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it might not hurt to also just skim past the opening sermon as well. Let's just start with the credits.
But overall, not the worst movie we've watched.
Nice sports car.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Happy holidays and whatever you celebrate.
Show notes and references for all of our episodes are available at lueepodcast.com, where you can also find links to donate or get in touch. If you'd like to support the show, the best way to do that is with a review on Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you found us, or by sharing this episode with a friend. You're listening to Life, the Universe, and Everything Else. Today on the show, or should I say tonight at the on the... Fuck.
It's so close.
Okay.